Are you waiting for a response from me?
Yeah,
I love
it's
Harrison
not
Ford.
good.
I love Princess Leia, man. I mean, it was the 80s and the 70s, so I mean, I mean the effects were, I could make better effects in like, I probably couldn't, but I mean, yeah, it was pretty bad. But they're just so, it's like the Lord of the Rings movies, like how The Hobbit, like they'll always be held to a high standard, and they'll never ever compare to the Lord of the Rings. But that's just how it is, and the Phantom Menace does get a. If Jar Jar Binks wasn't in that movie, it would be considered a classic.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, and I guess I'm gonna plug myself if you don't care. So I'm working on an oral history type thing on Star Wars, like the Clone Wars saga, and then it's going to also be about like the Sith grand plan of how Palpatine went from being a politician on Naboo to becoming the Emperor, right?
Yeah.
And destroying all the Jedi. So it's going to go really in depth in that. And one of the things that I'm really going to hammer is that, like, well, I guess this is apparent to me. The prequels are a different type of story than the original trilogy. And I think that kind of gets lost in translation. Because the original trilogy is all like, it's black and white, good versus evil. There's no gray area. I mean, Luke is the good guy. He doesn't do anything wrong, and he's fighting Vader and Palpatine, who don't do anything good, right? It's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
And you're cheering for the underdog to overthrow the evil overlords or whatever. But that's not the story of the prequels at all. Like, there isn't a good guy in the prequels.
No, they're all like they're all power hungry
Yeah,
people. I mean, like
it's a
Palpatine,
dystopian.
like when in the Revenge of the Sith, when Palpatine invites Anakin to that like play or something, and they're in that luxury box. I don't know
Uh-huh.
what the hell they're doing there, but I mean, he's talking about the Jedi and how the Jedi and the Sith are not that different. They just want power.
Yeah. Well, dude, and then I mean, you see it over and over and over again. I mean, the what does Mace Windu say in the scene right after that, where he says that they're going to have to send a task force or they'll have to take control of the Senate to ensure a peaceful transition away from Palpatine.
Yeah. Well, and
what
also like I mean,
what kind of peacekeepers do a hostile takeover of a political office?
well, and like they just didn't grant Anakin the rank of master because like they're scared of Anakin's potential and that he would like just become more powerful than him.
Yeah,
Mace Windu screwed everything up. He sucks.
yeah. I mean, the Jedi really play the role of being like the goody two shoes. We're innocent. We're just here to, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. But they're just bureaucrats. They're very heavily involved in the war effort. They're heavily involved in politics and policy, and really kind of throw their weight around. But they don't want to admit that. And then people like Padme, who are all like fanboys of the Republic and stuff, or fangirl or whatever. Like, that's all well and good, except for that they're supporting a corrupt institution. One of the details that kind of gets lost in Phantom Menace is that the reason that blockade is happening on Naboo, the Trade Federation blockade,
Yeah.
is because the Republic broke its own laws and was illegally taxing the Trade Federation. So, like, them doing that was a legal protest to defend their rights. And that's kind of what starts the Civil War. Is that all these planets in the CIS, like the bad guys in 2 and 3, right? The Confederation of Independent Systems. They declare independence because the Senate is being tyrannical, right? They're giving illegal taxes to people. They're breaking their own laws and stuff like that. And then, they're what's that called when you like influence someone to do something bad? I can't think of it, but they essentially goad the Trade Federation into breaking the law, and then they can like react with military and financial sanctions and whatever. And so it's not like the Republic's good. The Jedi aren't good. The Separatists are being run by a Sith Lord. and a droid army that's not friendly. So there aren't any good guys, and so it's just different, you know.
Yeah, it's all Palpatine, man. Palpatine is like the biggest key of the movie, like the entire trilogy.
Yeah,
like
that's another thing I like. Sorry, I've been hogging. You go ahead.
No, you're good. I mean, you know a lot more than I do. I mean, it's just I love Star Wars. I love it, man.
Yeah, I think so I think when George Lucas was making the prequels, he tried to keep the same like marketable packaging of good versus evil and stuff, but underneath that surface layer there's so much more meat to it, but it just doesn't, it just kind of gets weirdly lost in translation, you know? Like it doesn't come off as a genuine good versus evil story because it's not. And I think it was not fair to try to package it that way.
Did you see who is going to be directing the new Star Wars movie?
It's the dude from New Zealand, right? Taika Waititi.
Yeah, I saw Kaya was excited about it, so I figured he must be good.
Yeah, he's you know, I've seen a few of his movies. I know he did Thor Ragnarok, and then Jojo Rabbit was one of his movies this summer that I absolutely adored. I loved it.
I haven't seen both of those movies.
I'm not huge on Marvel movies, so I thought Thor was like solid at best. But Jojo Rabbit is really, really good. I definitely recommend it. It's a tearjerker.
That's what I heard. Did you like the Rise of Skywalker?
No, I didn't.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't like any of those three movies.
The freaking what was the second one?
The Last Jedi.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
Really awful.
Yeah, and you know, I get why people did like it. But to me, it just I feel like they had to rewrite a lot of the stuff that had already happened. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. They had to cancel out a lot of the existing lore of Star Wars to make the Rise of Skywalker, what's it called? Is that right?
I think it's the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, they had to cancel out a lot of previously existing stuff to make that happen. And you know, like if people are fine with that, or they didn't know what was canceled out to begin with, like that's cool. I don't want to rain on people's parade, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it was just kind of heartbreaking. Like I had much more of an emotional reaction than I'd like to admit about that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of tacky on how they just like always did like flashbacks to like the prequels or things like that when like they reference Vader so much, and not that that's a bad thing, like he's an incredible character, but like, you know what I'm saying, they just like, it was just so tacky.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my favorite of the newest ones. I said it was good. Yeah. I'm in love with what's her name? Rey.
Daisy Ridley. Yeah, she's pretty, man.
In her accent.
Yeah. One thing that pissed me off about that dude is that they gave Palpatine a family. Like, yeah. This dude has been so hell-bent on destroying an entire group of people that is tens of thousands, like eradicating them from the face of the galaxy. Like, why would you try to humanize that dude?
Yeah, and why would you like? I just don't get bringing him back.
Yeah.
I thought it was really stupid when his fleet of what are those ships called?
The Final Order or whatever.
Yeah, and that just kind of looked stupid.
Yeah. And
the more I talk about it, the more it just sounds dumb.
Yeah, there's a few nitpicky things. Like one, like just send it. Like I get that if you want to say that there's no shields in the atmosphere or whatever, then just send the ships out into space so you can put shields on them, right?
Yeah.
Like that's pretty obvious. And two, like, so I'm going back to the family thing with Palpatine. So he's willing to kill his granddaughter because she's a threat to him, right? And so if you're willing to kill your granddaughter, like, why even have kids? Like, if your family could be a liability and you're fine with killing your family, then why not kill your kid as soon as you have one?
Because he's just obsessed with the power.
Yeah, but I mean, does that not make sense though? Like,
it doesn't make any sense.
like if he knows, like, okay, because I'm so incredibly powerful with the Force, and I guess the Star Wars writers have a hard on for, legacy, family legacy and lineage or whatever. So like him knowing that one of his children could be his biggest enemies or one of his relatives, why make any relatives? Especially if you have no moral qualms about killing your relatives, then just kill all of your relatives.
Yeah, he's just like that Palpatine character is just so like, and he brought back like some of his old lines like, don't tell me because I have to do this by myself. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many. Wait, what does he say?
I can't think of it right now, but I know what you're talking about. Is it many?
Many. Some considered unnatural.
Yeah, many gifts some would consider, or powers some would consider unnatural, something like that.
Like, it's like you really couldn't, like, the writers of this movie couldn't come up with like new material.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah. I just would have liked something else. Honestly, I think they should have just left the Skywalker saga where it was. And here's another thing. Here, I'm gonna get on my soapbox again about Star Wars.
We may have to make this into 2 episodes tonight.
Yeah, I know. We've been going on Star Wars for like 30 minutes now. I think people give the whole Skywalker thing too much credence. Like, if you think about the story, if you zoom out, the story's really about Palpatine. Because it starts with his election as Chancellor in Episode 1, and it ends with his death and the destruction of his empire in 6. Like, the Skywalker family they're perspective characters. They are important, but they are the lens through which this story is told. Like, yeah. They are not the main characters. They are perspective characters. It's Palpatine, his journey from being a senator to, the Galactic Emperor. That's what this story is about.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this: in the Revenge of the Sith, after he kills Mace Windu, and he gets all old and everything, they have that huge meeting in that big room. You know what I'm saying? Where he says that he will, like, I can't even remember it all.
Yeah, he has like an emergency Senate meeting, and that's when he declares himself emperor. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And but like how does no one stop him right there? Like, I feel like it's just so obvious. Like, why are the people so stupid? I don't get it.
Well, I think at that point it was a mix of like, one, people that were fully in support of him. I mean, you got to remember, so he just said that the Jedi just attempted a coup on his life, and so people, one, are probably confused because they don't know if the Jedi are good or the Republic is good anymore. So they're probably confused. 2, they're probably scared because he obviously, like, slaughtered all these Jedi, and he has the clone army still. And then 3, they probably just feel powerless. I mean, Padme's crying and gives that line, like, this is how freedom dies, with thunderous applause, or this is how democracy dies, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it was probably a whole lot of, like, well, shoot. You know what I mean? Like, who's going to stop him if the whole Jedi Council couldn't, because they just got gutted,
Poor Padme, man.
Yeah.
Poor Padme. Ugh.
Yeah.
Her and Anakin, they were disgusting, and they bugged me so bad, but man, that end of Revenge of the Sith just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
And when Palpatine, like, tells Anakin that he can give the power, like, he can teach him the power to save Padme's life, and, like, Anakin ends up killing her, like, that's so sad.
Yeah. It is, dude. It's tragic. And